Well, hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region. Today, I'm joined by Senator Byron Pelton, who represents Senate District 1, which covers the majority of northeastern Colorado. Well, Senator, I hope you are well, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, Senator, you're an expert down at the state legislature. What is something that people might be surprised to know about what goes on down there in our General Assembly?
I think that they'll be surprised to know that not a lot of the senators or even in the legislature know a lot about local government. And they proved it with the last two special sessions with property taxes. Um, some of us that have served in local government and understand land use, understand how the departments work and that sort of thing with local governments. I think that is I think that's a big misconception about how a lot of our legislators down at the state capitol, not a lot of them know about local government and actually lean on us that have been in local government.
That's a great point. So often the legislators are thought of as experts in everything Colorado politics, right? Voters, the way I see some voters talk to some of their representatives and senators down there, and the way that some of these committee hearings go, you'd think that these politicians are experts on everything that happens in our state. So, really refreshing to hear that, there's something that maybe they're not that big of experts on.
Yeah, it is, and it actually surprised me when my first year was in 2023, and when I walked in there, I assumed that they would know automatically about local government, but a lot of them don't, and a lot of them have to ask questions about how local governments work and that sort of thing. A perfect example is in Senate Bill 212. Last year, they tried to take away land use authority from local governments to put in green energy projects. And I kept telling them, I said, we're not the problem. I mean, this is not the regulations are the problem. The biggest problem that we had when we put in a wind farm here in Logan County when I was a county commissioner was CDOT because CDOT held up the project because they weren't approving the permits fast enough for us to get the wind tower blades to come in so we could widen up the right of ways off the highways. And I just could not believe like how frustrating that was. So I mean, I told him we're not the problem. Your regulations are your own problem. So your big bureaucracy is your own problem.
And that's the reality too. We have so many people serving in our state government who are so either misinformed or just not informed about so much of what's going on in our local communities across the state, and yet they're making these important decisions, big projects with millions if not billions of dollars involved, and trying to affect how our cities, counties and towns are established. I mean, it's crazy to see this top down kind of central planning approach that we've seen over the last few years when it comes to housing, transit, and so many other issues where Denver wants to control how everybody in Colorado lives. It's really an attack on rural communities and this idea of home rule, generally speaking, where we should be allowed in our local communities to decide the best way to live our lives.
Absolutely. And I believe in local control wholeheartedly because I came from local governments. And I have to tell you, the people of their communities know how they want it grown. And when you have a land use hearing, you'll have 200, 300 people show up to testify to let you know how they feel about it. And then that helps us form on how we move forward with that permit on that land use permit and how we'll put special things in there and special rules in there to prevent encroachment on their private property. The biggest part of the reason why we have land use and why it's so important, especially at the local level, is the fact that they'll protect private property on both sides of the project. And it's all about protecting private property, both on the person that's going to get that project and it's also the neighbors, so we're not affecting the neighbors as well.
Right. I think about that so often. I'm a relatively new homeowner, bought my first house earlier this year, and I see all of these bills going down at the state legislature this previous session, and you think, oh my gosh, are they going to open up some high density mass transit oriented community right next door in this house I'm investing in, a house maybe I want to be for decades, maybe retire in, and part of the reason you choose your house is because of the community it's in and the area it's in, and it's so unfortunate to see the state government really try to enforce this on everybody without really understanding all the stakeholders involved for sure.
No, I understand that 100%.
Well, one of the other issues that we seem to be facing almost every single year down at our state legislature is the government employee retirement program called PERA. So PERA stands for Colorado's Public Employees Retirement Association. Nearly every year that I can remember, at least that I've been involved, there's funding issues, there's other issues that just seem to affect new bills pretty much every single year. So some of the latest numbers I saw, just to get people up to speed if they're not too familiar with it, is that there's nearly 400,000 Coloradans who are members of PERA. So that's, current, former, and beneficiaries of state employees. And it affects so many people across our state and really disperses around $5 billion worth of benefits every year. So I mean, it's a massive institution here in our state. So Senator, I'd love to get some information here about this program, because it does replace Social Security for government workers. So it's such an important part of their future planning. So Senator Pelton, what are the major issues with PERA?
Well, some of the major issues with PERA is that I think that the people who are on PERA, my wife, my brother-in-law, my father drove a school bus for 35 years. So he is on PERA, and he had to work 3 jobs to make sure that he was raising. He was a single parent dad. He raised 2 children off of 3 jobs, and one of them was driving the school bus. So that's his retirement that he gets to deal with. But what my I a couple of years ago, I was really trying to find where the financial statements for PERA on their website to figure out where is all this money going? How is this money being invested in that sort of thing? And I have to tell you, I was pretty frustrated because I could not find a lot of the information. I could not find meeting minutes, could not find a lot of stuff. And one of the biggest issues with PERA is just being transparent and accountable to the people that they are going to have that retirement and what they're doing with that retirement and the fund itself. It's just making sure that you're transparent and accountable to the people that are in PERA. So I think that's a huge issue.
Yeah, I can imagine, so many people across our state, nearly 400,000 people are heavily invested into the future of PERA. Is that money going to be there for them? Because that's, of course, a line we've been hearing about Social Security for so long, is that, hey, it might be gone by the time a lot of younger people are able to retire. And for some people, that's their only retirement they're planning on. So, just like members of your family there to say, I'm relying on PERA to get me to where I need to go for the rest of my life, and to have all these questions and doubts about its future can be really concerning, I'm sure.
And I got to tell you, I did meet with people that are that represent PERA in the lobby, and I also met with PERA, the executive director, and they recognize that they haven't been very transparent either, and they have been actually negotiating with us on a bill that we're going to be seeing here this next legislative session, coming from myself and I think Senator Colker is going to be on it as well. But we are just really kind of talking through the steps of, with my experience of being in local government, there's people that have been on school boards that are going to be helping us with the bill, that they have to be transparent and local and their on the way they do school finances in their own local jurisdiction. That, why can't PERA be just as transparent as local governments and school districts and people that they have the fund for? I don't see why that can't be a possibility.
No, it definitely makes sense. And I think this transparency in government is such a nonpartisan or bipartisan issue that really everybody should be getting behind it, whether it's meetings at the state legislature or, caucus meetings, whatever you want to call them. But, or what our government's doing with our tax money, and what these people are depending on this retirement program, being as transparent as possible makes the most sense out there. So can you give us some specifics about the bill? How are you going to increase transparency?
I think one of the things that we want to do is we want to really show, like in local governments, we have to show how much people are making and that sort of thing and what bonuses they are getting. I think that I really want to go after that aspect of it because in when I was a county commissioner, everybody's salary. We didn't put the names next to that to the salary. What we did is just say this position gets this salary and this bonus or whatever. So we actually did that. I would like to know, because I want the people that are the 450,000 people in the state of Colorado that are on PERA to know how big the administrative costs are when it comes to PERA and how much they're not getting in retirement fund when that aspect comes out. So I think that is a key aspect of it, because if you don't know how much your people are getting paid, that money's not going into the fund. I think that's a really big issue. We want to make sure it's not top heavy type of thing.
Sure. Do you think people would be surprised at the bureaucracy or this heavy administrative force in para?
I don't know. I don't know about that. I know that, here's the one thing I will tell you. I'm a physical conservative. I've seen our governor blow up his full time employees every year with 1,000 people every year for the last 6 years. So 6,000 people. I think they'd be more surprised on how big CDPHE, the health department, is, or how big that DOLA has become, or how big CDOT has become, and our roads still aren't getting fixed. I think that they would be more concerned about that aspect than maybe PERA. So
That's a great point. I had no idea. So you're saying over the last 6 years, about 6,000 new full-time employees at that executive or government level?
that is correct. Every year it's been about 1,000 years that or 1,000 employees that he's hired, and that's kind of why we're in the budget deficit that we're working in, the $1.5 billion. I think Senator Kirkmeyer called it we put our own self into a structural recession, is what she's been calling it. So
I love that. Yeah, structural recession that's a good line because yeah, I mean, what do they expect? What does the governor expect, right? You keep growing the bureaucracy, you grow all of these employers, all these employees, and now with this the whole government unionization looming across our state, I mean, it's just only going to get a larger and larger burden on the taxpayers, on the government's budget. It's absolutely crazy. Um,
well, and the more money that goes to those people, the less money that goes to fixing our roads, or goes to people who have autism and that need those providers to be able to help them and that sort of thing. That's less money that goes there. That's going to the administrative costs, and I despise that with a passion. I worked very diligently as a county commissioner to bring transparency to the behavioral health system in the state of Colorado, because we were not seeing the services or the resources get to the people that needed the most help. And and come to find out, it was going to all the administrative costs and that sort of thing. And so when we found that out, we're like, we need to bring transparency to this, because as soon as the people find out about it, they're going to be hopping mad. We need to be accountable to the people. That money needs to get to the people that need help. It doesn't need to get to somebody else who is padding their pocket, or any of that stuff. So and have jobs that are redundant on redundant on redundant. I mean, I worked in the military, man. I was in the Navy. I saw that over and over, and I was like, what a waste of money. So, so
well, that's great, and I see you got your Navy shirt on there.
yep. Tomorrow is the Army Navy game, and you can tell Rep Armagos we're gonna beat the Army. So there you go.
Well, I'll let you tell him that.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I just totally agree with your statement there about the bureaucracy and this administrative cost. We see it in the schools. I think that's one of the big issues that we've seen for years is, public education gets more and more money, but it doesn't seem to get to the students. So much of it gets caught up in the administration and the superintendents and all these members up at that high level who are making so much money compared to the average people in their community. And so, you see it all over different government agencies everywhere. And anybody who's had a real business or a private company or even worked in a business, the highest cost is your employees, is having an employee there, especially with all these state mandates for now there's family leave and all these other requirements that you have as being an employer in Colorado. So I can only imagine at that government level, the true cost of each one of those full-time employees or FTEs and what that means for the lack of services, like you said, the lack of maintenance on our roads and other things that the government is supposed to be doing. I mean, this is why they're taking our money. And unfortunately, it's not getting to where it needs to go. So definitely applaud you on those efforts. Any other previews or predictions for the 2025 legislative session?
Well, I just want to kind of talk about a little bit what you just said with the superintendents, because the superintendents in rural Colorado with the rural schools, because we don't get as much money as the front range schools because we don't have the population and that sort of thing. And with all the how should I put it? There used to be. Do you remember back in the day when we used to have a superintendent, an assistant superintendent, a vice principal, and a principal, and all that stuff? We even had that in Cheyenne Wells, where I grew up, and that's a whole county of 1,500 people. Well, a lot of these schools don't have that anymore, so the superintendent has to do 2 or 3 jobs, and I get that aspect. And my brother-in-law is a superintendent, so I would have totally agreed with you, Brandon, before I was married into the family, and I got lectured about all the different things that he does, and he does really work hard and does an excellent job to make sure that his kids are getting educated. But any other surprises? Yes, we're going to see more regulation on things, I'm afraid. And 3 of my bills are just taking away regulation in agriculture. We have, you're going to get a kick out of this. We have farmers being told they have to take mining permits to level their land in Eaton, Colorado. There's one, I'm trying to make farming or agriculture exempt from that. The energy codes that were passed in 21, they said agriculture was supposed to be exempt, but the way they wrote the bill, the energy office has made it where it is now, they interpret the law instead of actually saying that they're exempt. So now they're calling them industrial. So I'm going to make agricultural actually exempt out of that bill. So they're done with that one. Another one that I've been working on, but I think we're going to have to pull back on because it's just not ready yet. And that's cutting the taxes on everybody who raises livestock, that sort of thing. But I think we're going to have to pull back on that one because that's not ready yet. And Senator Roberts and I have been trying to massage that one where it was going to work, but I just don't think it was work. And yes, a Democrat was ready to help me cut taxes, and that's a big deal. So
Good to hear.
yeah.
Very good to hear. That's for sure. Yeah, standing up for agriculture is so important, and I really hope that everybody down there at the state capitol this year really paid attention to what happened during the November election. We had the stopping this mountain lion hunting ban, and then in Denver of all places, stopping the ban on slaughterhouses and stopping the ban on fur sales. So, I think voters across Colorado, including the Denver metro area, really want to support our agricultural and rural communities and preserve this Western way of life that we have. So I really hope that with the efforts of yourself and even Senator Roberts and others, that you can see a unified front standing up for rural Colorado.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. But the negative thing is that when the governor of Colorado gives animal rights activists a platform, this is what we get. We get trying to ban mountain lion hunting. We get the introduction of wolves. We get this what do you call it? This ban on slaughterhouses and fur that they tried to do. I mean, these are all things that happen because when you're the governor of Colorado and you give the animal rights activists a platform, this is what you get because of that.
Well, yeah, great point. A lot of that does start at the top, and a lot of those people lower down the ladder, take their cues from the governor and other people up at that level. So, great point there. But Senator, really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today. Any final thoughts? Any final words to leave with people?
All I can say is that just pray for us while we're down there at the Capitol. It's going to be a rough one for most of us. The good news is there's no money to spend. So all we can do is cut. So that is good news for all you conservatives out there and fiscally responsible people. So
Silver lining there, the government's running out of money.
there's always
Well,
a good
right. Yeah. Thankfully, we have Tabor. Thankfully, we have some of these caps that prevent them from just taking every penny because so many of them would want to. That's for sure.
That is right.
Well, wonderful, Senator Pelton. I appreciate your time. Take care, and I hope to talk to you again. Keep us updated about what's going on down at the state legislature.
I'll do that. Thank you.